All right, let's get right into it. We're about to unpack a story that is just wild. It's the story of Britain's biggest, most audacious, and, you won't believe this, surprisingly clumsy cash robbery. It's this incredible tale of military-grade precision that just completely descends into a comedy of errors.
Just look at that number, 53,116,760 pounds. In the early hours of February 22, 2006, a gang of armed robbers made off with all of that. It was, and you know what? It still is, a record-breaking figure in British criminal history. Just incredible.
And that's really the heart of this story, isn't it? The gang had this cunning, absolutely terrifying plan to get inside what was basically a modern-day fortress. But what happened next? Well, the getaway was a total disaster. A chaotic, mistake-filled escape that basically left a trail of breadcrumbs for investigators to follow right to their front door.
Okay, so to really get your head around just how massive this heist was, you've got to compare it to the one crime that everyone in Britain knows, the one that's been talked about for decades, the Great Train Robbery.
Yeah, this really lays it out, doesn't it? The Great Train Robbery is legendary, for sure. But when you look at the cold, hard cash, it's just dwarfed by the Securitas Heist. And get this, the gang didn't just steal more money, they stole more weight. We're talking half a ton of banknotes. They literally drove off with half a ton of cash packed into the back of a truck. I mean, just the logistics of that alone is pretty wild.
So, the big question is, how on earth did they get inside a place that was supposed to be completely impenetrable? Well, their strategy was as brutal as it was smart. It was psychologically terrifying. See, they realized to beat the physical security, they just had to control the one guy who had the keys.
And the tactic they used has a name. It's called a tiger kidnapping. And its genius is, well, it's in how cruel it is. It makes all the physical security, the high walls, the thick vaults, it makes it all completely useless because instead of trying to break into the fortress, you just weaponize the manager's love for his family. You turn the company's most trusted person into its biggest weakness.
And for the depot manager, a guy named Colin Dixon, this is exactly how it all started. He's just driving home from work like any other day, and he sees those flashing lights in his rearview mirror. A totally normal traffic stop, right? He pulls over, probably thinking, ugh, a speeding ticket.
But that pretense, it didn't last long at all. They're on this quiet country road, and suddenly the whole world shifts. The guy in the police uniform pulls out a 9mm handgun, and the reality of the situation just crashes down on Colin. The ordeal had begun.
And this is where the plan becomes just absolutely terrifying. Because while one team had Colin in the car, a second team, also dressed as cops, went to his house. They told his wife that he'd been in a bad car accident. They get her and their young kid into a car, and then they take them hostage. That was their leverage, the ultimate leverage.
Okay, so now let's go inside the fortress. Imagine this. With his family's lives hanging in the balance, Colin Dixon, a gun literally in his back, has no choice but to walk back into the depot he's supposed to be protecting and open the doors for this armed gang.
The second they get inside, it's just total chaos. There are 14 staff members on the night shift, and at first they think it's a real police raid, but then the guns come out. They're thrown to the floor, their hands are tied up with these super painful cable ties, and they're held captive by these masked armed guys for more than an hour. Just terrifying.
And this number, this just shows you the sheer volume of cash they were swimming in. Get this, the gang steals an incredible 53 million pounds, but their truck wasn't big enough for all of it. They had to leave behind a staggering 154 million pounds. Can you even imagine that?
So, as the robbers are finally making their getaway, what do? They lock the terrified staff inside these metal cash cages. The psychological trauma, as you can imagine, was just immense. One of the hostages said later that the only thing he felt, constantly, the whole time, was just pure, overwhelming fear.
So, the gang has the money, they've escaped. It looks like the perfect crime, right? Well, this is where the story takes a hard right turn. Our high-stakes thriller suddenly becomes more like a bumbling comedy. It's this incredible moment where this meticulously crafted plan just smacks right into sheer amateur hour incompetence. And I mean, it fell apart fast. Check this out. Within just 24 hours, the police get a tip, and boom, they find the latex disguises from the kidnapping. Less than 48 hours later, they've already traced getaway cars right back to a key suspect. And within a single week, they were busting down doors in armed raids.
The mistakes they made, they're almost hard to believe. It really points to this fatal flaw in the gang itself, right? You had a mix of masterminds and, well, knuckleheads. I mean, they spend months on this super complex kidnapping plot, but they had basically no plan for the getaway. They left a van behind with over £1 million in cash, a machine gun, and balaclavas inside. It was like a starter kit for the police. This wasn't Ocean's 11. It was a gang of amateur misfits who pulled off the impossible, only to trip over their own shoelaces on the way out the door.
So, the police investigation, which was called Operation Deliver, now had all these threads they could start pulling on, and it didn't take long for the whole thing to unravel.
And you know, there was a huge twist. For a while, everyone suspected the manager, Colin Dixon. I mean, it makes sense, right? But the real inside man? It was a clerk named Ermir Hasenajay. He'd used a tiny camera hidden in his belt buckle to film the inside of the depot. He'd basically handed the gang a blueprint for the whole raid.
So in the end, justice did catch up, with most of them anyway. The local guys who acted as the muscle, they got long sentences. The inside man, Hizanish, he got 20 years. The mastermind, a cage fighter named Lee Murray, actually fled to Morocco. And because his dad was Moroccan, he claimed citizenship and avoided extradition. He did get jailed over there, though. And then there's the makeup artist, Michelle Hogg. She cut a deal. Testify against everyone else, and you walk free.
And her excuse for making all these hyper-realistic disguises? You're not going to believe this. She claimed the mastermind, Lee Murray, told her it was all for a computer game he was making, a game about cage fighting. And the craziest part? The jury and the prosecution totally bought it. She walked away a free woman.
But even after all the arrests, all the convictions, there is still one massive question that hangs over this whole thing. The police got back about £21 million. So where is the other 32 million? It's never been found. The best guess is that it was laundered and just disappeared into the criminal underworld.
And really, that's where we have to leave it. Because beyond all the huge numbers and the kind of funny, clumsy mistakes, this is the real story. For those 14 staff members held at gunpoint, for Colin Dixon and his family, this wasn't some exciting movie. It was a terrifying reality. It's a memory of fear that, as one of the victims put it, is something they will have to live with for the rest of their lives.